You're listening to the IWD406 Podcast with your host, Julie Walls, where we celebrate, empower, and connect women across Montana and beyond. Join us as we share inspiring stories, valuable insights, and the voices of remarkable women making a difference in their communities. Today on the podcast, we have Bella Downing and Amber Downing. Bella Downing is the 2024 Montana High School State Champion for 120 pounds. She began wrestling in 5th grade and continued from there. She has also trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since she was 6 years old, also becoming one of their assistant coaches at a young age. She aspires to continue to wrestle after graduating in 2026 while attending college to obtain a degree in sports medicine. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amber and Bella. Okay, first, we're going to start with our first question is, are you both originally from Montana? Amber, I'll start with you.
Yes, I was born and raised in Helena, Montana.
Okay. So how many generations?
About 3 generations on my mom's side.
And then what's the background again?
We're Norwegian, so she's from Northeast Montana.
Okay, so for those listening in, she has this beautiful blonde hair. She looks very Norwegian. So yes, I was like, you've got to be Norwegian. Now, Bella, where are you originally from? Montana?
Nope.
No. Where are you originally from?
Washington State.
Okay. And then when did you migrate to Montana?
When I was like 6 months old.
6 months old. So you don't remember a thing about Washington.
Just the stories.
Just the stories. Now, why did your parents come here? Just for opportunity?
My dad's on the railroad and he got the opportunity to come to Montana or go to Idaho. So he chose Montana.
Oh, yeah. Montana's way better. Sorry, just throwing that out there. That's awesome. So your dad works for the railroad. And where did you guys end up landing?
In Columbia Falls.
Columbia Falls. So you're a Sea Fall girl.
I am.
So what's that being a Sea Fall girl?
It's nice because we live right in town, right by all the schools. We walked to school from like 2nd grade all the way to my 8th grade year before I switched schools.
Yeah, it's super tight. I love these little small communities where kind of the downtown and then all the schools are around that area and everybody seems to know everybody.
Everybody knows everybody.
Right? And that can be like a good and bad thing.
It's a good thing. Everyone's looking out for each other.
That's true. That's true. So you grew up at the high school. Did you grow up going to school all the way through till now? Or are you going to somewhere else?
I go to Flathead now and I've been going there since my freshman year.
Okay. What's the differences between Columbia Falls and Flathead as far as school goes?
Flathead is huge. Yes. It's 3 stories. Sea Falls, it's like about 3, but there's not as many people. The hallways are filled every single passing period. It's a lot.
Columbia Falls is like Whitefish. You have about how many kids in a class?
Oh, I don't even know. Like 200 probably.
Oh, per class?
Like high school class. Not like classroom class.
For the whole school. Oh, yeah, that is small because Flathead's pretty big.
Flathead's like 500 per class.
Shot it. I didn't know it was that big. 400? Oh, wow. And then when did you guys come to Montana, up to the Northwest?
In 2008, my husband took a job as a State Farm insurance agent here in Kalispell.
Oh, wow. How do you like being up this way?
I love it. Helena was great, but the beauty of this area is phenomenal.
It is. It really is. Do you like to ski?
Years and years ago. But wrestling season pretty much dominates.
Yes. And I want to know, because we're talking to Amber. She is a coach for wrestling for women, right? For the girls?
Yes, the girls wrestling team at Flathead.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to know a little bit, before we dive into Bella's story, I want to know a little bit about your story. Talk to me about growing up in Helena, and did you wrestle when you were younger?
I did. I started in kindergarten, so I was about 6 years old off of a whim where I saw an assembly and brought home a flyer to my mom, and she's like, driving me crazy, so why not?
What was it about that you wanted to do that? At how old again?
6.
6 years old, you're like, I want to wrestle. Because when I was 6, I wanted to be a dancer, right? You were like, no, I want to do that. What was it about that?
I was just a really physical, energetic little kid.
Yeah.
And
did you have brothers?
I didn't. I had an older sister.
Oh, did you guys used to wrestle?
Not really.
Okay. Gotcha.
She wasn't as entertained by the idea of physical contact. So.
Okay. Got you.
She'd humor me for some moves sometimes, but yeah. My mom she had retired from teaching and was looking for something to keep everybody busy. And so she said, why not give it a shot? And it was right there in East Helena at the school that my sister and I were attending. And so she found out that I didn't do too shabby at it.
Wow.
So
What was it like? Okay, so when you got out there learning all the moves and everything, what was like the first, did you like start winning matches, or was what hooked you to keep doing it?
That's a long time ago. I'm not entirely sure what hooked me. I think it was just the energy and in the practices, the energy in the competitions.
Yes.
There were a few obstacles to overcome, being particularly once I got older. I would notice the different treatment between myself and the boys, being the only girl on the team for many years. At 6, I don't remember those things as much, but I do remember the excitement of competing.
Yeah. And I want to get to you, Bella, as well, because you were also, there wasn't that many girls that competed in wrestling in the beginning of your story. So you guys have a very similar story. Now, then eventually, were there more girls hopping on board to wrestle?
Yeah. There, as I was transitioning out into other things, gymnastics and cheerleading and such, there were a few younger girls coming up through the ranks that I mentored a little bit and encouraged. And it was really neat to see that there are other people seeing the joy that we've been given in the sport. And that's why we're in the sport, is not just because of the opportunities for girls opening up, but just the life lessons that we have gained through it.
Yeah, which I want to know about that. What were some of the life lessons that you learned?
That resiliency piece, that grit, when you go out on that mat, it is just you and no one else. You don't have a team to rely on to pass the ball to or anything like that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's either your hand being raised or your opponent's hand being raised.
Yeah.
And you have to put to work your training and your desire to win it more than them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do want to talk about individual sports versus team sports, and we'll get back to that, but I want to go back to you. So growing up in Sioux Falls, you started with jiu-jitsu. Talk to me a little bit about doing jiu-jitsu and what about it that kept you staying in it? Because I know some girls do karate and then they do it for a couple years and then they're done with it. What about jiu-jitsu that intrigues you to keep you going?
I had a built-in family there.
Okay.
I've been there for 11 years now.
Yeah.
And I love them. They're like my other parents. I call them mom and dad sometimes. I'm always hanging out with them outside jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Like, it's just another family.
And I want people that are listening, what is jiu-jitsu? Explain a little bit about that.
It's a grappling sport, and basically you can break people's arms and choke people out and everything.
So is it only with your hands? You don't use any tools or anything?
Correct. You have a gi for regular, and then there's no gi, which you're in rash guarded shorts or leggings. But in a gi, you can use a gi to choke people out.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
You take the lapel out, wrap it around their neck. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I so want to see this. This is crazy. So then, okay, so that's thrilling.
It's fun.
And then as a competitor, an individual competitor, what about jiu-jitsu? Are you hard on yourself with that? That seems like a very serious contact sport.
In jiu-jitsu, I'm not as hard on myself because I'm 17 years old as a blue belt. So I know that like I'm good. Like I know that I'm good. That's all that matters. So I'm not as hard on myself on jiu-jitsu because everyone else around me like still looks up to me even if I do lose.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm not as hard on myself as I am in wrestling.
Okay, so talk to me about the exploration of wrestling. When did you get like interested in doing wrestling?
Jiu-jitsu was like when I was in it for a while, I was like, okay, this isn't as competitive as I want it to be because I'm a really competitive person.
I can see that.
And so
I love that. It's so fun to watch.
We were talking to one of the coaches. He wasn't a coach, but he was. We were talking to him about wrestling, and he was like, I don't think it's a good idea. You're a girl. You're going to get hurt. And I was like, okay, whatever. Joined it the next week, and I beat his son.
Did you know that you were choking people out in jiu-jitsu? Had no clue?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he did.
Okay, anyway, go ahead.
So then I went in, practiced, and then I ended up beating his son. And then ever since that, he's always looked up to me.
Okay, hold on. Repeat what you just said. So you ended up competing against his son.
In practice, yeah, I pinned his son.
And did he see that?
Yes. He was sitting on the sidelines of the mat.
Did he say anything to you?
he was just proud of me. He was like,
Oh,
dang.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's some of the challenges that women deal with, it seems. And you said the same thing, Amber.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think men and young boys are inherently brought up to think that because of the biological differences that they do need to, whether it's protect us or just put us in a different area of competition because of the testosterone difference, strength difference. I think that women that want to rise up to that challenge to push themselves and are knowingly making that decision should be, given at least a chance. And the benefits that we can have by training and learning from our male counterparts is huge.
Yes.
And even some of the things that they can learn as well from us that aren't necessarily strength oriented, but maybe tactic or even the flexibility side.
Yeah. I love what we talked about with the mind-body piece.
Right.
Which I know you went from being a wrestler to a gymnast, which is all very much mind-body connection.
Correct. Usually it's the opposite for a lot of kids. They'll start out in gymnastics, and that relates very well into wrestling and just having the muscle structure.
Yeah.
But also to be aware of how your body moves, which direction, how to keep your core tight. Now mine was opposite, but coming back full circle, it has benefited me returning to coaching and wrestling with the kids on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can see that. And I want to go to what you said about just men are more protective. We just did an interview with Anna Farr from Firearms Handling, and we talked about this same thing, is that, men are they're the protectors, right? But yet oftentimes we should be our own protectors.
Correct.
We can become a liability. And I can see that wrestling, jujitsu has self-defense components to it.
Right. As a female coach, I still end up encountering parents that are hesitant to put their daughter in wrestling. And that is one of my selling points is, hey, she's going to graduate from high school and go off to college or go off into the real world. While they may not decide to continue wrestling, the little bit of time that they're spending in our room on the mats is going to give them a skill set that will last them their entire lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because in that episode, we were talking about women being a liability, even in their own families, if you can't defend yourself. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. Two sports to consider. And it's not handling a gun. It's literally using your body to defend yourself.
Yeah. Knowing how to grapple, how to scrap. Most fights end up on the ground. But even having that confidence.
Yes, the confidence.
And that muscle memory of when somebody grabs you, how to react. Your body just kicks in and takes over. You don't have to think about it.
Okay, so now jujitsu, is there a lot of moving and flexibility in it?
Oh, yeah.
So do you think that is what helped you with wrestling?
I feel like I was way more aware of where I was on the mat.
Yeah.
Because in wrestling, you have a circle and you have to stay in the circle. I feel like that helped me be aware on the mat and be aware of where their arms and their feet and their legs were and where they were trying to grab on my body and how to defend that.
That's interesting. So talk to me about one of your most memorable matches.
State finals last year.
Oh, talk to me about that.
It was a crazy match. We went into triple overtime.
Okay. But at this point, though, you're where you're at, are you competing against only girls or are you?
Yes.
Okay. But before you were competing against boys.
Yes.
Okay. And then when did that shift to girls? Because are there that many girls wrestling in the Valley?
Our Flathead high school team had over 30 girls on the roster.
What?
And we took 25 to divisionals and 17 to state.
Shut it. That's amazing. Why? Real quick, why do you think that's developed so much? Because I know where I'm from, wrestling was not a thing for women. What do you think why is the sport picking up?
I think statewide, it's been picking up for the last 5 years since Montana has it sanctioned as an official high school sport. So that's a big piece.
Yeah.
And they have now made it so that girls in high school are competing against other girls versus having to compete against boys. So that has a lot of opportunities for those girls that were hesitant to compete against boys, were parents that were hesitant to have their daughters competing against boys. At Flathead, we have a very progressive approach in that we have our practices split, boys practices and girls practices.
Okay.
Initially for those girls that are nervous, that is a big confidence boost.
Yeah.
They're not as hesitant because it's all girls in the room. I think it is also a little bit of a benefit to have a female coach in there with them.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about your most memorable match. Talk to me about that.
So it was the same girl that I lost to the weekend before in overtime. And at that point, we were 3-2. She beat me 3 times. I beat her twice that season. And it was just one of the biggest matches, I feel like, of my life.
Oh.
And we started off the match, like the first period, nobody got any points. She shot on me. I defended it. We both, like, no points in the first period. Then the second period, I think I escaped and then took her down.
Okay,
So
you
then
escaped.
Escape, which
Out of
is
the
1
move.
point. Yeah, so I'm on bottom, and then I stand up, face her. That's 1 point, and then I took her down, and that was 2 last year. And then I think she took me down or something happened. So we were tied up, it was 3-2. And then at the last 6 seconds of the third period, I let her up on accident and she got a point for an escape point. So it was overtime.
Oh, geez.
And my mom was freaking out in the stands because I lost her the weekend before in overtime.
Okay.
And I don't like to shoot in my matches. So overtime is the first person to get points.
Oh, okay.
She shoots like crazy. So
When you say shoots, what does that mean?
shoots a takedown, tries
Gotcha.
to take me down.
Okay, got you.
And I'm trying to defend it, and I ended up defending it because it's a 1-minute period for the first overtime.
Okay.
And then we have the second and third overtime, and one person's down, one person's on top, and then you switch for the third overtime. And she ended up running me off the mat. So she gets a stall call, and I get a point for her stalling. And then I end up escaping. And then the third overtime, she's on top. Or no, I'm on top, and I'm just Iowa riding her, which is like riding off to the side
Oh,
the whole entire 30 seconds. And then somehow she like flips towards me, and then then 30 seconds is up. I ended up winning the match. And
oh, have fun. It seems like it's like a moment to moment situation, right, Mom? Yeah, that is so stinking cool. It's like a nail biter.
and she was the state champ the year before.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's huge. Good for you. You light up when you talk about that story. That's wonderful. So do you compete? Do you get to know people and their weaknesses when you compete against them? Can you see that
Mm-hmm.
when you're out there? You're like, oh, this girl, like I went against her last time
Mm-hmm.
and she's weak in this area and I know where to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're strategizing.
Yeah. And the girl that like I
Oh.
wrestled state finals last year, that whole week leading up to state, I knew I was going to probably have her in finals. So I worked on defending her single leg the whole entire week because I knew that's exactly what she was going to do.
Okay, Amber. So then as a coach, now, when did you become a coach?
Probably back in 2012.
2012. Okay. So are you also as a coach watching how others perform so you can then strategize as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. So talk to me about that a little bit. What does that entail?
It entails tracking bout numbers and brackets and matches to know who our girls or our kids are going to be against. It even entails like on the weekends or off time, looking up matches that are potentially recorded and on YouTube or
Yeah.
Track Wrestling, Flow Wrestling, all of the different online apps available to us and figuring out what their go-to stuff is. But even as a coach, I also have to teach my wrestlers, you go in that match and wrestle your match, your style.
Okay.
We don't want our kids saying, okay, they hang in the 2-on-1 or they hang in the underhook and spending their entire week trying to wrestle that other kid's best style.
Oh.
So we have to strategize on wrestling our best style in a way that neutralizes our opponent's best style.
Fascinating. That's really stinking cool. Okay. My other question is, so you got the physical strength. Do they have to weight train?
Yes.
They do.
My girls get a little frustrated with me because I'm constantly on them of get in the weightlifting class, get in the
Oh.
weightlifting class.
Because they compete in certain brackets, right? That has to do with the weight. You're
Correct.
not- Bella's not competing against a 300-pound person, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's
Okay.
about a 5 to 7 pound weight range.
Okay.
Depending on.
So you
different
actually
weight
have
classes.
you have to weigh in
Yeah. Every
Is-
week.
And as women, do you feel anything around that? Do you get concerned about that? Is anything like that come up?
I think for some
Some do.
initially they're worried about the number or they're embarrassed to get on it.
Yeah.
But I think when they get into our room and they see how normalized it is, and that we utilize it as a learning tool. It's just literally a piece of information that we grow from.
Amber, that's amazing. I'm so glad the way you said that. That's wonderful. So then you've got the weight piece. Then you have to do the other piece is the nutrition piece. Is there nutritionally things you have to do to prepare?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that is a big thing for me coaching women is cleaning up that nutritional content, ensuring they're getting enough macros or protein. I like to see the kids have at least 1 gram of protein per pound. So
Wow.
if you're 100 pounds, you should be trying to have 100 grams of protein
Wow.
every day.
This to me I'm way old. So I look at it like I look backwards in time and going, anything we did in sports, this was not even a thought. I don't even remember being asked in track to go weightlift or do anything other than just keep running. I was never talked about with nutrition and what I ate and how it can affect my mental piece to this, which I want to get into. I think this is wonderful.
Yeah, like and sugar impacting the mental, physical, and also your immune system. The ever popular CMC moonshines, and that's our little soft spot there.
What is that again?
The Copper Mountain moonshine.
Oh, Copper Mountain. Okay, got you.
The overall sugar content and the energy drinks and things like that, and the negative impacts. So we encourage the kids to have a food log and to think about how that impacts their performance or just how they feel. When you're carb loading, sometimes the crash is coming down. When you have that higher protein content and your whole grains, things like that, or even like sourdough bread is honestly a little bit better than the whole grain
and
bread.
You're having these conversations with these kids.
Absolutely. And
That's
then if
amazing.
they are going home and I say, hey, if your parents are struggling on knowing how to prepare food and meals for you, have them call me. The other, as they're looking to make weight, things like seasonings, finding sodium-free seasonings to use, because sodium will cause the body to hold on to excess water. So in that last couple of days when they're just trying to eat well and stay hydrated, you don't want to hold on to anything unnecessary. So you want to reduce the fiber, reduce the sodium, and anything that's going to hold on to excess water on a final day.
You almost have to be a nutritionist and a fitness expert to be coaching wrestling.
At times, yes. And on the college level, I think a lot of those D1 schools have nutritionists on staff.
Yeah.
And they have personal trainers on staff for those lifting routines, and they're geared towards the individual sizes. So your smaller weight classes are going to have different tactics than your larger weight classes.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I don't know another sport that really is focused on that. Do you? Is there? Golf doesn't do that.
Pole vaulting.
Pole
you have to be
vaulting?
a certain weight, but
Okay. You do? Wow, I didn't know that. Wow. Oh, interesting.
you don't have to be a certain weight. You have to it's the bar.
The
pole vaulting.
pole that you use to get the bend,
Yeah.
they're weighted. So
Yeah.
150-pound athlete is not going to go grab a 110-pound weighted.
Right, of
because then
course.
it's going to bend too much.
Yeah.
And a little pole vaulter, I pole vaulted once or twice, is not going to want to grab a heavier weighted pole because it's
Right.
just going to be
Yeah.
too stiff.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the mental aspect because that's super important. You could do all the things fitness, which does help the stomach and the gut with the mental piece. Like you said, sugar can impact and processed foods. But are there girls that come in and just have real shitty bad days? And you're like, how do you help them? Because it's going to impact the way they wrestle, right?
100%.
Okay. So how do you help them with the mental piece?
First off is encouraging them, regardless of what kind of day you're having, get in and get that workout in.
Yeah.
You're expected to be at practice. And the science behind that is that endorphin release. As much as I get pushback from girls saying, I'm sick, I've got cramps or whatever they've got going on, I'm like, no, you're going to do this. And by the end of the day, you're going to thank me that you stuck it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Movement helps.
Absolutely. And I said, if things aren't driving for you, find a corner and just stick to yourself. Do your thing, but you got to do practice.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable in our room. And I think that helps when they know that they have that accountability.
Yeah.
And then they see how everything ties together.
Yeah.
They probably have a little bit more impact on their partners than they'd be willing to believe. But
You're laughing, Bella.
As coaches, we try to combat that a little bit with swapping out partners, but you get into rolling technique and just trying to get through everything on your to-do list to help prepare everybody. And And we're not perfect. We're human. And so that our goal is to consistently swap out partners. But sometimes in certain rooms, you have different skill sets and then different sizes. And you don't always have a whole lot of partners available to each individual. So it's always a balancing act.
Yeah, it would be a balancing act. And I want to say, how do you prepare for matches, Bella? Is it, you obviously physically have to do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nutritionally do the work, but how do you prepare mentally?
I listen to my music.
Okay.
I put both my AirPods in, turn it all the way up.
What kind of music?
All kinds.
All kinds.
Mostly rap and the girl rap.
Oh, good. Okay.
But it's a whole bunch of bad words.
Yeah,
and that just makes me...
It makes you get going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you deal with, on the flip side, when you're having a moment and you have a match or you don't feel as confident, maybe you walked away and you did have a defeat. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And it's okay.
This year I took it really bad because I only lost twice this year.
Yeah.
And the first loss was way worse than the second one. The first one, I feel like I had so many emotions built up and everyone was telling me that I was going to win it. I was going to go out there and win it. And I just had so many people just build me up like super high. And then it's like a tower just fell right over. And that was
hard to take.
Yeah, it was really hard to take.
So
and
how did you help shift? How did you pivot from that?
I just realized that if I lose, I'm losing to a world champion wrestler. Like,
That's pretty amazing. Let's be honest.
Like, honestly, at least I have the opportunity to wrestle somebody good, so I can have that push. I can get pushed because I don't get that push in many of my matches. A lot of them, they're first period, second period pins or techs. So getting that push was really nice. And going into it this past weekend, wrestling the same person, I just wanted to do better than I did last weekend, and I didn't get pinned. And
that's awesome. Yeah, good for you. Okay, I do have a question. You said that this is sanctioned, so you can, beyond high school, go wrestle somewhere, right?
Yes.
Where do you go in the state for that?
There right now is only one women's program in Montana, and that's at the University of Providence in Great Falls, which is in the NAIA division.
Okay.
But women's wrestling has now been sanctioned in all collegiate divisions.
Great.
From junior colleges up through D1 colleges. On the NCAA level, you have different programs. And obviously, just like in the high school, the schools can decide what they offer for athletics. But it is the number one growing sport for colleges as well.
What? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it because of why? What's the popularity around it? Is it because there's not that, it's the small pool?
I think some of it is the Title IX aspect.
Okay.
Women's wrestling is truly saving men's wrestling when a lot of schools were looking at cutting that as a sport because it's not the huge moneymaker that football and basketball is.
Yes.
Because you just don't have the attendance at the events. But I think our culture across the board in the U.S. is changing.
Yeah.
I just watched an event on, I don't remember if it was on Flow or NBC or one of those news stations, that they tandemed a gymnastics meet with a wrestling duel.
Yeah. Oh.
And so you'd have like literally two screens going at the same time. And one is the gymnastics side and one is the wrestling duel, which my bias, at that moment, because we were trying to watch a specific athlete.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch the wrestling, but it was really cool to see how they were paired together and how packed that stadium was in an attempt to grow both sports.
Yes.
And women's gymnastics is definitely taking off. And hopefully that will help our men's gymnastics team and help the U.S. perform at the Olympic level.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you want to go on to college and you want to wrestle in college?
I'm planning on it.
You're planning on it?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay in state at Providence? No, you want to go somewhere else?
I want to go somewhere warm.
Oh, I don't blame you. I would want to. I like to get away every once in a while, so I don't blame you for doing that. Down south?
Possibly.
Okay. You're talking a little bit about, talk to me a little bit about, you want to go to college for sports medicine.
Yeah.
Why?
I just want to stay in sports for a while.
Yes.
And I feel like athletic training is harder than sports medicine, but it's also the same thing.
Yeah.
It's less years to do sports medicine than it is to do athletic training. and you're just in the sport and you can
Right.
always help people.
Yeah. And you've obviously have gotten hurt, right? In both sports.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely a need.
Mhm.
So yeah, you'd be the perfect fit. Plus you still want to coach, right? Is that what your plan?
I'm planning on coaching. I also don't really know yet.
Yeah.
Just depends what happens
hard.
outside of college.
Yeah. Well, you're still young. Every time I ask my kids, my sophomore, what do you want to do his eyes roll in the back of his head. I'm not ready for that conversation. So I totally get you. But I do want to say something. I noticed some similarities between the two of you. So you both liked individual sports. Did either one of you ever play on a team sport? You did? Which one did you play
I
on,
did
Bella?
volleyball my 8th grade year.
Did you like that?
I liked it, but I also feel like I was way too competitive and they just didn't care as much. And I just wanted to be the boss and be the leader.
Yeah,
and
I can see
didn't
that.
work out.
What about you?
I did basketball in 5th, 6th grade.
And how was that?
It was all right. I was aggressive.
Yeah.
So I did all right for a point guard type position, but ultimately I was realistic about where my body build is and where I was going to be most successful.
Yes. Yeah. And individual sports are quite different than group sports. But however, with wrestling, you do have somewhat of a team sport happening, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you balance that piece? Because are you competing against your teammate?
Sometimes you're paired up with your teammate, like in a bracket. Sometimes you end up wrestling your teammate.
Okay.
A lot of the time, that's really common for Flathead, especially at divisionals, because we had the biggest girls team at divisionals. And so a lot of our girls wrestled each other.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucked because it was like top 4 go to state. So then you're like knocking one of your teammates out. But
that could be tricky.
Yeah.
Especially when you see them at school the next day.
Our girls handled it really.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It seems like you're building, Amber, a team where there's a lot of respect.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
I see it more that direction. Obviously, every individual may have a differing view, but I know Bella was in a position where she could shift weight classes. We also had another wrestler that wanted to potentially shift weight classes. And we sat down as a staff with both of them and said, hey, here's what we're looking at for our lineups and the different opportunities and the numbers with each different scenario. And the scenario that allowed us as a team to bring the most girls to that divisional tournament, to give the most people an opportunity to at least have that tournament under their belts, was Bella at 115.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I think that's where the team aspect comes in, is there are times where wrestlers will make a decision that may not be what they want or the best scenario for them, but it's the best scenario for the team.
Wow.
And that on the boys' side too, of like people moving up, moving down. I had one girl that went to state at 190 pounds, but only weighed 160 pounds.
Oh.
And it was a pure strategy to give her the opportunity to qualify for that state tournament.
Oh, very cool.
Where she had never had that opportunity. And so while it was a much higher bracket for her, which was a challenge physically, she still got better regardless of the outcome of the match. And I'm like, you're getting mat time. You got to be with your team. You got to be a huge supporter. And she needed to take that positive piece from it and not focus on an outcome.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I want to say something. So between the two of you, she's your coach. And I want to know, have you guys ever do you guys look at each other and go, you have so much similar type tendencies or characteristics? What are some of the things that you've noticed?
Sometimes we bicker.
You bicker. What do you bicker about?
Who's right and who's wrong?
Oh, okay. Got you. Okay. What else?
I've known Bella since she was, a lot of times when she first came into the wrestling world, everybody thought just by the same last name that she was mine. I think now after 3-4 years, everybody's aware that she's not my daughter, but we interact very much like a mother-daughter pair because of the amount of time that we spend together.
Yes, but I see there's a mutual respect. I love watching the two of you. You both very much respect one another. What is it about your coach that you respect most about?
How she can handle with our team, like how she deals with our team.
Yeah.
36 girls is a lot, and she's coaching all of us, and she makes it work out. And I could never do that.
I know that would be really
so
tough.
many different personalities.
Yes.
Oh, it's crazy.
What do you see in Bella that you, I don't know, about her? What is it about her that you see that is remarkable?
Her athleticism and how she can feel different technique and respond in ways that I'm like, even mid-match, I'm trying to coach her and I'm like, or do that. And obviously that worked out.
Yeah.
It's something that even as a coach, sometimes you can't even anticipate
seeing
transpire.
Yeah.
And then watching her grow in the sport, even the maturity of going from the divisional match into the state tournament match and the conversations that we had revolving around the two of them.
Is there something specific? Is it her drive that you saw that you were like, gosh, this girl's going to be a state champion? Is it the drive or is it the combination of all the athleticism?
I think it's a big picture.
A big picture piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that confidence, I think, can carry an athlete a long ways. I think a lot of our matches as a team that we lost were a lot more mental.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just outgunned. Somebody's more physical. They have more muscle mass, whatever type scenario. But there were a lot of really tight matches that we just didn't believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we believe in ourselves, we're going to find more success.
Dang, you are a good coach. You were excellent. Seriously, it's amazing. Okay, life beyond wrestling. Where do you see the programs going in the state of Montana? You said they keep getting bigger and bigger. Up here in the Northwest, I didn't even realize wrestling was really a thing up here. I know Flathead is killing it in men's wrestling and in women's wrestling. Do you see that even growing? What do you see for Montana for wrestling?
It ebbs and flows a bit. A big piece, I think, is your impact on the feeder programs.
Yes.
Jeff and I have been a part of wrestling in Kalispell and in the Flathead area he's been in it for 20 years and I've been in it now for that 10, 12 year range, and bringing up kids in the sport from the time they're little to the time that they're juniors and seniors in high school is huge. And so cultivating that piece, and I think across the state, when you see successful high school programs, a lot of it is based in a grassroots start, but it's also based off of the ability of a head coach to cultivate a staff and a culture in their room that brings people in. Over half of our team for girls were first-year wrestlers. We took 3 first-year freshmen to state.
Wow.
Even. So that's pretty impressive. And then our boys team is constantly seeing new wrestlers or wrestlers that kind of dabbled in it in their youth and then come in the high school. And just because they're inexperienced as freshmen does not mean that they can't put in the time, effort, the mental determination to find success. One of them that has wrestled with my son, he has really just turned it on in the last couple of years and has come an incredible amount of improvement and wants to do more. And so seeing that coming from the kids, I think really builds.
Absolutely. Yes, you guys are killing it. Ladies, we're down to our last 3 questions. I love talking to you guys, and you guys just light up when you're talking about all things wrestling. All right, I'm going to ask both of you these questions. So I'm going to throw one at you, Amber, as well. Okay, what's the weirdest or funniest superstition or ritual you have ever done before a match? I'm going to start with Bella.
I've ever done?
Yes.
A lot of the times I listen to the same exact song every single match, and I get so tired of it, but I feel like it helps a lot. And also just the way I tie my shoes.
What?
My black shoes, I have to tie them, and then I don't double knot them, but then my pink shoes, I double knot them. But my black ones, I have to tape them a certain way. I tape them a certain amount around my shoe.
I love that. That's so cool. What about you, Amber?
Silly things like jewelry I'll wear, or like a certain bracelet. I typically wear a lot of black, and inevitably the only time when we have a really bad day has been when I've decided to wear something colorful.
Oh, what's that about?
I don't know. And then even throughout a tournament of who sits where and who sits at which match, of, okay, we had this match that we thought we had in the bag and it just went all downhill. So either we change up the coaches or we change up who's sitting where, because it didn't work.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy though? But I think it's that law of attraction. If it's done this way, we know that this is going to be the winner. I love that. I love hearing these kind of things. That's very cool. Okay, our next question is, if you could create your own championship belt, what would it look like and what would it be called? I'll start with Bella.
It's going to be a big belt,
Yeah.
like about this big.
Yeah.
And if it was my own belt, it's going to have a taco on it.
Do you love a taco? You love a good taco?
My nickname's Taco Bella.
Oh, I love that. That's so fit. Do you like tacos?
I love Taco Bell.
Oh, it's a riot. I love it. I love it. Perfect. What about you, Amber?
Obviously making a statement. So whether or not I'm into wrestling, I'm still a girl and I still like diamonds. So
Oh, I do too.
something a little bit catching your attention and sparkling.
I love it. I love it. All right, ladies, we're down to our last question, which is our signature question on the podcast. And I'm going to start with you, Bella. If you could pass the mic to a Montana woman to share their story on the IWD406 podcast, who would she be and why?
Keisa Davison.
Oh,
I met her when I was about 6 years old. Her husband coached me in jiu-jitsu, and she's been like my other mom ever since.
Oh.
And she just always texted me, checking up on me, always texts me after my matches and telling me how good I did. And I've always traveled with her, and I just feel like she's a really big part of my life.
supporter. Oh, have you known her since you were little? Oh, I love that. Is she in Columbia Falls?
She's in Kalispell. Her and her husband own SVG in
Okay.
Whitefish, and that's where I started my
And
journey.
SVG is jiu-jitsu, right?
Yes.
Is it a dojo? It's not called a dojo. What do you call them?
A gym.
A gym.
It's
A
like
gym.
our jiu-jitsu gym, yeah.
Oh, very cool. Oh, I can't. It's Kira Davison.
Keisa Davison.
Keisa Davison. Okay, wonderful. All right, Amber, you're up. Do you have one?
I'd have to brainstorm on that one a little bit of which direction I would go if I'd stay in the wrestling world or where I would go with that one.
That's okay. We can always get that later. Awesome. Ladies, it was such a joy interviewing you guys. I had so much fun. I learned so much. How awesome. You guys are killing it.
Thank you.
Keep doing it, Bella. You're killing it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Come back on the podcast again. A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.